Tonight, we wanted to talk about bending wood, the magic of bending wood. There are multiple ways of doing this. We did not too long ago talk about steam bending, where you just press a lot of steam into a piece of wood, you let it basically sit in a steam chamber, and it becomes a bit plasticized so you can bend it. But it's unpredictable. This method I want to show you is called lamination. So we're going to actually glue up layers of wood and bend them and then clamp them to a form for a stronger finished product. It's much stronger than steaming. In fact, if you wet a steamed piece of material, it will actually spring back all the way to its beginning state. So we want to use this method, especially when we care about the material staying fixed in a certain position or being especially strong for a different application. So I thought about this and I thought, let's show a simple project, and at the end I'm going to show you an application. I won't be doing it, but I'll just show you what this simple technique, how it can be extended into more complex things. It's a lot of fun, only limited by your imagination. So I hope you'll enjoy this. Well, in thinking of the project for tonight, I thought, what can I do that's kind of a simple bend, but it will show all the technique for creating a smallish form. And well, these are the laminations we're going to use, so you can see it's not that big. And what it is just kind of a U-shaped element. And I got to thinking, what would be nice is to make a plant hanger, so that something that has a vertical, it's got to be flat and straight where it attaches to a wall. So let's do our fancy, it's going to attach to a wall with screws like this right here. And then it's going to come up and then bend. It has to extend, whoops, out far enough for you to put a little hanger of your favorite. Well, that's not very good, is it?
It's better than most of us can do.
Your favorite bucket of flowers. Woo! All right. So it's not about the flowers. Don't be distracted by this Van Gogh-esque treatment here. But this is what we're after, is this element here. Now, this, I've seen guys steam bend these and use them, but I want to laminate and just use it as a good method. And in order to laminate, we need a plan. We need a form. So you can't just bend this in space. Well, we want to clamp it with pressure around a form. So I did a little more detailed drawing, and I sketched this out with just a pencil. So you can see I've got a straight line here, and then I arced it out. So it goes out probably, this flat area is probably 6 inches. So I figure you need about a good flat area to get a couple screws into. And then it's going to bend over so you can hang a nice basket. And it's going to come away from the wall by about 9 inches or so out here. So this is just the curve I'm showing, the shape of the form. So the thing we bend will actually be a little larger to however thick we make our parts, whatever our laminations build up to. So once I had this shape, all I did was take an awl, poke through each point, a number of points along this curved arc, and then I connected the dots. Many or some of you have seen this treatment where I do this with 1/4 inch MDF, and once I bandsaw that out, I just stipple through to this, pencil it, bandsaw it, and then smooth the shape. So right in this area is the flat. So right here you can see this is going to be our plant holder. Now this could be anything. but right now it's a plant holder. All right, so let me show you how you can make your forms pretty quickly with something like this. I'm gonna set this on this piece of plywood. I have a piece of 1/2-inch plywood. It's almost a Baltic birch type, and I'm just gonna tack it down. Okay, so now it's held firmly, and now we're gonna make our template or our actual form. So to do that, what I'm gonna do is simplify this whole thing, and I've got a collar, a guide collar in the router. Let me just push this down so you can see. And I've got a 1/2-inch router bit in there, and there's a 5/8 guide collar. So we'll have a 1/16 offset. But the 1/2-inch is just going to plunge and obviously remove a 1/2 inch of material. So it's actually going to create the inner and outer form here. We're not going to use a strap on the outside. We're actually going to use more plywood to clamp it on the outside. So this material, these laminations, are a 1/2 inch thick. I've got 7 laminations here, and they are 1/2 inch thick. Now you might say, well, where did you get those? Certainly Wood has an area in the back of their website called special thickness veneers. And you can get sometimes 1/10 of an inch, a 1/16, up to an 1/8 sometimes. So that saves you time to make laminations. These are actually from Certainly Wood. They came more this thickness, so it actually measured a touch more than a 1/16. That's why I only needed 7 to do a 1/2 inch. So this is the actual thickness. Now it's a little thin for some applications. If the bend is not severe, you can use thicker material to make the bend. So we did a rocking chair some time ago. We used 1/8 inch laminations for that one. But here I'm going to just use these because it's what we have. Now you can also, for some bends, I make my own. This is some that I made myself. I just bandsawed it and then ran it through the drum sander. And this is a 1/10 of an inch. 10 layers will give you an inch. So that's nice stock to make yourself. It ends up being, you know, I tried to calculate the time and everything. If you're set up well, you can actually save a little money by making it yourself, but it depends on the project. So, all right, well, let's get started. We got to get our form made. So I'm going to put on my gear. I'm going to plunge route, and I'll just kind of quickly move through this. I'm not going to make the whole thing, but you'll get the idea. I'm going to move along with that guide collar firmly against our pattern so we make our cut. And then I'll explain the parts here. Now I'm not going all the way through. I'm going about a 1/4 inch through because there's a lot of material. I'll finish the rest after another way. Here we go. I'm going to make one more pass. I only went roughly half the depth rather than trying to get it all. And you notice I have a little riser block, kind of like an outrigger, double stick tape there to keep the router nice and balanced. I don't have to worry about it tipping over on me. All right, let's do again. I want you to see what we've done here. We can actually pop the pattern off. So this is our template. That's what we needed it for right there. Now I got to get those little pin nails out. There's a couple sticking up there. One. Dos. So here we are. We've got our pattern. We've routed the slot for our hanger. This is the flat area. This is going to be the inside of our form. This will be the outside. But we don't need all of this, right? So I'm just going to draw a line, something like this, to show my inside piece. And on the outside, I'll go with some straighter for clamping on the outside. I've got some.
There's some chatter here about spring back, Tom. Do you have a formula, a rule of thumb, the amount you're expecting?
It's very little. This is one of the advantages of laminations, is you get very little spring back. The ultimate, what I'm learning is, but I haven't used it that much, polyurethane glue introduces no water to the equation. And water in the equation adds to potential misalignment from what it was. So there's very little spring back with this. That's the beauty of it. If you let it really dry, when you pop it out of the form, often it's not even moving. So if the glue cures and fully dries, sometimes you take it off the form early and it'll actually dry and pull a little smaller than the form or tighter. So, but I haven't experimented enough with urethane glues, but I have seen it in commercial applications. They're using it more to alleviate the question mark of movement after. It's not technically spring back. The spring back is more of a steam bending issue. All right, so let me pop this off and see where we're at, okay? So I just made some pencil lines. This will be my inner form and this will be the outer. Let's just saw out one, and I'm gonna use the jigsaw because I don't have the big saw ready for me right now. I got it set up for something. So here we go. Okay, I can do the rest on the bandsaw. Let's go to the bandsaw. Okay, so you saw what I did there. I bandsawed it, but I didn't go all the way to the cut surface. I would do the same here. I would bandsaw away most of that, and now I'm going to flush route to that edge. Rather than plunging all the way, we'll just flush route. We need this set up anyway, so let's just get the height right. So that's the inside of my form, right there. That's it. That's where we're going to bend our laminations around. But it's not thick enough. It's only half the thickness we need. This, I would do the same thing. I would just bandsaw off and then flush route, and I would have the inside curve, the outer curve of the form. So I'll just clamp the laminations between these two pieces that are exactly a ½ inch apart in space because of the ½ inch cutter. So we'll give the perfect squeeze for, an irregular shape would work in here as well. So once I have that, I'm going to just, I would then take my part and I would put it on some other plywood and trace, because I need to build up the thickness, okay? I only have one, so I'm going to just make it thicker. So all I did was trace around and then bandsaw out to the line that's a little heavier than what I'm getting here. And I need to just, I put a little glue on the, between them, and then I'll pin nail it together, and then I flush route it. Okay, so this is the way you would just build up your form layer by layer, however you need it. If I need it even thicker, let's say I'd probably be dealing with 3/4 inch plywood, and I would put a piece maybe on each side of this center pattern form piece. So, and I would flush route from each side with the flush bearing on the template piece. All right, so I got it in position. Let's hit it. So this makes, I mean, obviously you'd want that glue to cure a little bit, but it's not going to move. Then you get this like a laminated piece of plywood that's super strong, and it can take a lot of pressure. So that's what's nice about making your own forms like this, quick and easy. Let's go ahead and route this. We're going to flush route this as we build up our form using the inner pattern. Okay. So now I stacked up my inner form, here it is, and I've got one that I previously finished. This is the outer. All I did was flush route to that cut and then stacked it as well and just routed right around the whole thing. So you end up with two nice matches. So if I align these pretty close and put my clamping pressure, it's going to give me a perfect 1/2 inch gap to sandwich whatever I want between it. This is especially useful on odd shapes. So sometimes I'll actually use strap clamps with cawls inside the strap clamps. And if it's more of a rounded edge, it distributes the pressure really nicely. But if you end up with something that's kind of weird, like I actually made a little dip up here, thinking maybe I want to have a little dip for the basket to hang, you know, make a little more sculptural element there. And you can't really do that with a strap clamp. You'd have to put other clamps. So this minimizes also the number of clamps you need. But all right, with that all set, we're ready to glue up some laminations. Except we want to protect our form. We could just wax these because we don't want glue to get on there and then glue our laminations to the form. That's not a...
Can't have that.
Yeah. I've had parts stick, but never actually glued them to the form. Now you can actually put wax on there, but another method that's really handy and good is to use packing tape. So this is the good surface. So all I do is set the packing tape on the edge and just roll it around. smooth it out nice, and the glue will not stick to this. So it's kind of handy. So that's my inside curve. And I really want to smooth that out. Don't want any kinks in it. And then I'm going to put it on the outside curve caul as well.
This is reminding me of the classic round chair
Oh, really?
curve that you...
Yeah, we did something like this. I've been thinking a lot about the classic round chair because of the class next week. I've got a little piece of material there I'd like to get out of the way. Sorry, I got some. Okay. Okay, so then once you get that, then I'm just going to fold this back and away from the form. So we've got a packing tape protected form here rather than just the wax. This does, it's a little more reassuring to have the packing tape on there. It's works really well. All right, so now I've got my form ready and I've got to get my lamination. So let's get some paper to go down. Let's get our laminations. And I got to make sure I have enough. And here's where, you know, if you had material that you made yourself or you bought the veneer and you are able to have consecutive sheets, if you can cut right through the layers, you end up with like log run material. So when it's clamped up, it's almost looks like an absolute solid piece of wood because the seams are very hard to see. This is all very close in color. It's going to be really nice, but it's not the exact same like cut going down through. It's from the same piece of veneer though. So I'm going to put the most appealing grain on the outside and go with that. So now I'm just going to flip the layers. Let's see. Doesn't really matter here. Let's, just in case I had them organized, I can't remember if I did. Okay, that's that. Now I just have to get glue on these layers and then I'll flip them all onto this one. Now, this could be outside, so I'm gonna use Type On 3. And in this case, but if you knew it was going to be an inside hanger for whatever reason or an inside project, you could use just regular glue. I would use probably Tite Bond Extend. It's a little more brittle glue and it will work great. But really, even if this flexes a tiny bit, which is probably all it will, it's not going to be a problem because it's just a freeform element by itself. I'll just go down with, don't need to overkill this. And let's get my roller. Here we go.
So Tom, Paul's curious, using this particular form as an example, with 1/2 inch space, how much thickness of a total lamination would it handle? More than 1/2 inch? What do you think the limit is?
I'm shooting, I custom made this for a 1/2 inch. I've never tried, but if you go outside of it, you're going to have the wrong radius on the inner or outer, and it is very rigid. So I wouldn't really alter. I'm trying to stay right at it. I mean, it can be a slight bit more or less, but you're not getting flexing. So it's made for a 1/2 inch build of layers. This in this case. There are other like strap clamps, don't care really. A Okay, that's enough glue, and we're good to go. So now I'm just going to flip them and return them to their original position. Just make a nice sandwich here. This is the kind of thing that would make nice gifts. I mean, I should be doing this late winter so people could be thinking about spring, right? No, I'm thinking about spring.
Oh.
Like to hang your plants, right? Now I'm going to just give it a little mush. Try to distribute that glue a little bit. But it's going to get mush right now. So here we go. Now we're going to go into our form. I got it on this paper. I don't have a lot of squeeze out, so I'm not too worried about this. But I'm going to try to adequately center this on the smaller one. Let me just see where I am. Not quite. Let's go there. Yeah, that's good right there. All right, so I get it to that point. Now I'm going to bring in the outer one and just slide it right up. I've got to, whoops, I got it oriented the wrong way. I got to flip it over. It was almost symmetrical, but I have that little bump and the flat was on the wrong side. All right, there we go. That's looking better. I actually have this with marks on the other side, I think. Yeah, it doesn't really matter.
Great.
Okay, so now it's close, but we got to get the clamps on. So let me flip it more this way. So I can get a clamp on the outside here. I'm going to go right for the middle and work my way out. So watch what happens with just one clamp. With this rigid type of form, you've got the strength of the laminations. Now there I go, I'm going to tighten it. And this is, you want it, what I was trying to do is push everything down to get it flat. I'm a little bit wider than the form, that's perfect. Now I can see a little squeeze out coming right here. I could probably get away with just 3 clamps, but let's put 5 on. I'll throw one in the middle here. That's the other thing about this. You can clamp it easily, and it's very reassuring that it's rock solidly pressured right where you want it. Okay, and one more at each end. So this is where we have our little whoop-de-doo there. So I really want to get one right there, right across that funky little change in direction. That's pretty cool. Okay, there we go. And go down here. So the thickness of the veneers, you have to be careful, that you don't go thicker than, like if you have a really tight radius, you need to have your veneers a little thinner. Make sure it can make the bend. Once you get the glue on, it gives it a little more elasticity, like it gets kind of more flexible with the glue. All right, so you can see on the underside, that really nice squeeze out all along, and it looks pretty sweet right now, but this is just the first stage. I'm not going to take it all the way through, but I do have one that I clamped up earlier. So let's go ahead and get that. So now look, I'm going to take it out. This one I had out a little bit because I used it for something, but look, there's hardly any springiness, and this was only in for I put it in at 2:30, so it was in for 3 hours, then I had it out for like an hour, and then I put it back in. So if it had just stayed in, this probably wouldn't move like overnight. But look at, it doesn't really matter when you get this up into space. Now here's my flat area, And I ran over the joiner. I didn't really want to do that on camera, but it's kind of hairy. But you need to flatten that edge. You can run it around a joiner. You just have to be careful keeping your fingers back, but I didn't want to demonstrate that right now. I wanted to go ahead and join an edge because I want to quickly run it through the bandsaw to show you cleaning up this edge. So this edge still is rough. In order to run through the bandsaw, I like to put a backer piece of tape just to limit any tear out that I might get on the back side. So let's just put this masking tape right where I'm going to have that side down, obviously. And let's see, my laminations I think are 1 inch. Yeah, so let's go over to the bandsaw. We'll set it at about 15/16 or 7/8, whatever. We'll just trim it up a little bit. And then I could skim it on the joiner again. All right, let's see what that does. Okay, so that's one of the advantages of having a small joiner in the shop as well. You can do little funky things like that. Now it needs a little cleanup there. Let's see if I can just hit it with this. Just run the block plane on there.
That's great.
Yeah. Clean it up. I won't spend too much more time, but that's getting nice and clean. And then we would need to cut it to length. So I'm just going to snip them off a little bit here. Okay. Now, here's where it can get kind of fun. You can shape this however you like, you know. I would probably put a little round over on this edge. Right now it's just very rectangular, but we could give it a little more artsy look. I think softening this edge a bit would be nice. Let's see what we can do with a spoke shave real quick here. You could obviously do this in a router with a round over bit. Then up here, I'll do the same thing. Let's just give it a little round over. So you can have fun with this, and then I would take it as far as you want. It doesn't take long to get a nice edge. You could do a little rasp file sand and you really start to see it. And then I'd drill a couple holes here. It feels like it should have almost like round head brass for more formal if you wanted to finish this. And then you could cut a little groove in here for whatever to hang. You might say, oh, that's a little longer than I want. You could come back here, cut some off, cut a groove back here, you know, for whatever it is. But this is cool because I've seen applications like this where they actually made lights holders. So you could run a wire up and then have a light hanging down with a little shade on it. To make a simple bend like this wasn't really about a plant holder. It's about the technique, because this has huge applications. I have loved using this method in different aspects for making lots of curved dynamic furniture, and then using in combination with veneered pieces and solid wood pieces. But one of the more recent pieces is what the camera lady mentioned earlier,
Oh.
the classic round chair. We made a form using this pattern. So there's the pattern.
Beefy.
Yeah, 1/4 inch. And then this is made up of 3 layers of 3/4 inch plywood. So there was the center that was the pattern, flush routed to this. And then I just glued on 2 oversized and then flush routed using the center pattern as the guide for the bearing to ride on from each side. Then you end up with a beautiful pattern. And I had the outside pieces. Now my outside caul is in 3 pieces to make it easier to grab. You can grab the middle and then swing around and get the ends. But here's what it makes. This seat rail. So this is a 1 inch thick seat rail made out of 10 layers. And here's the laminations for that. These are the 10 layers of material. You see I have these little arrows on here. If you reconfigure, I'll usually put an arrow on there if I want to rejoin the material together. It doesn't really matter so much on this project, but those little arrows should be all connected. But they're not all here on this one. But this is 1 inch, this is 10 layers. That's that 1/10 of an inch. And this is what it gets you, this seat rail. So you can see this is the core element of this chair. It's a laminated 2 inch wide seat rail, 1 inch thick. And because of the laminations, it presents this really strong backbone of this round chair. The legs tie into it, and then they come up into the sculpted arm rest and backrest as well. But there it is, a great application.
Gorgeous.
For this inner and outer form for laminating. And there you have it. And this is on my brain because next week we've got a group coming and we're gonna make this chair and we're gonna do some laminating around forms. But that in a nutshell is all there is to it.
So I do have one question.
Sure.
How thin of a form can you get away with? For example, if you had a 3 inch thick workpiece and a 2 inch thick form, would that still work, or should you go ahead and match to exceed the thickness?
Yeah, you can see the issues that might happen there. To get really adequate pressure, you know, your laminations, you're not going to get good pressure above and below the form. You know, it just stands to reason that way. So my form here is, well, it's 3 layers. It's like 2 1/8, and I do use like 2 1/4 inch lamination, so I'm a little up on each end, but that ends up getting trimmed off. It gets trimmed down to 2 inches. So yeah, unfortunately, you do have to build it very close to what your laminations are. Otherwise, you can't guarantee you're going to get pressure out all the way. But it'll be glued, but you won't have those really tight joints, quite likely.
Awesome. Really good.
All right, everyone. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I love the possibilities and the creative genius that this might stir in so many of you. I've seen so many great pieces as we've had people visit with the courses, showing a photo of their work at lunchtime often. That's been a real highlight for me personally, to see all the work that everyone's doing.
Yeah, it's really amazing.
And thanks for being part of this. We really appreciate knowing you're there. We love doing this. So if you're interested, check out epicwoodworking.com. We have a lot of other furniture projects there. And there's even a community called the Neighborhood. That's a lot of fun to be a part of with a lot of perks as well. So, hey, thanks again for being here.
Thank you so much.
On behalf of the camera lady and myself, we look forward to seeing you next time. Right back here on Shop Night Live. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. See you next week.